Hello and welcome to the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind Podcast. My name is Dave Aarons and I'm the founder and CEO of Unbundled Attorney. In this podcast, we interview our unbundled attorneys, as well as the leading experts in the industry, to identify the best practices for converting leads into paying clients and how to ethically and profitably deliver unbundled legal services and other affordable options in your practice. To learn more about how our exclusive unbundled leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com.
All right, welcome everyone to the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind Podcast. Very excited to be back and recording these podcast episodes. It is not as easy these days to make the travels to bring the whole video crew out and do them on site. And so, but it's not ideal to not have the podcast episodes going out at all. So we're switching to Zoom and switching to audio so that we're able to keep up to date with the unbundled attorneys that we're working with across the country that are having great results, and to unpack some of their best practices so that you can help to apply them in your practice as well. So very pleased to be here with Mr. Joshua London, who's an unbundled attorney. And thanks so much for taking the time to join the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. There's not much more. It's something that funny enough, I like talking about this anyways. I've been trying to tell other attorneys about Unbundled who I like, the people I want to be successful around me. And I can't get anyone to just sign up. I try telling them that, I don't know. I tried telling them about the amount of money I'm making, and, they're friends of mine. I want them to be successful too. So this is a good chance to spread the word. Yeah.
I guess the issue is the good, often the too good to be true, but we'll unpack all the specifics so that anyone that might be on the fence or not necessarily knowing how this thing comes together, maybe we can give them a clear picture. So, but why don't we start, Joshua? Maybe you could just share, how you get started in the practice of law, where you're practicing out of, and just bring us up to speed with where we're at.
Yeah, I practice in Minneapolis and the greater Twin Cities area. I only practice in criminal defense, but I do everything running from DWIs and misdemeanor assaults all the way up to, right now I've got a murder case and several more serious cases like that. I went to law school at a place called St. Thomas here in Minneapolis, and I graduated back in 2014. I worked for a firm that, again, did criminal defense, focused on representing veterans for the first 3 years, but then I could just see the writing on the wall. I needed to get out on my own and start my own firm. So I did that in 2017. And, I was successful pretty quick, but then the pandemic hit and things kind of changed. So it's nice being back and running full time again.
Awesome. And you've always done criminal defense for the most part since you started as a solo practitioner in 2017?
It's all I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've made the mistake when I was a younger attorney, trying to get involved in another area to help somebody out or try and take on a case. Yeah, stick to what you're good at, and this is all I want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So really looking forward to diving in. Obviously, you've been able to accomplish a lot in the relatively short period of time we've been working together. And I know there's been a lot of takeaways as well, just working with your support lawyer, Mr. Dolance, as well as, just testing out a myriad of different ways of approaching calling the leads and getting in contact with the folks and getting them signed on. So looking forward to unpacking that, but maybe just bring us where things are at for you when you first got in touch with Unbundled Attorney and what that initial outreach was and where things have gone from there.
Well, I'll tell you that my firm was what I thought was pretty successful. I thought I was doing a good job of getting out there. I had a few different avenues of getting business. Had a few different things I was spending money on to get business. I was starting to develop word of mouth, but I started with Unbundled in January, I think the end of January this year. So only 5 months ago.
Yeah. And, 2023.
So far, just from Unbundled, I have made about 30% of what I made all of last year. So, just in the 5 months as a solo practitioner, I've made $130,000 in fees just from Unbundled. which, you know, that's on top of my other practice, which as a solo practitioner, that's an enormous amount of money. I mean, defense attorneys adding, you know, $130,000 in 5 months, or what hopefully will be $260,000 in 12 or something like that. It is life-changing. So it's happened fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're talking, 4 or 5 months, since you first got rolling. So, and so far still a solo practitioner, but who knows how long that can keep up.
It's one of the things that when I was doing my initial, I got offered this $50 gift certificate to sit in, and I thought, why not? I really do try to give every different type of advertising a chance. You have very little to lose, right? Maybe you miss out on a couple $100. You learned it was no good, but you tried it. And the things that have worked for me are things I just decided to try. So I decided I'd sit in. And I remember them saying, what our goals are if you just sign this percentage. And, we have a lot of attorneys who need to then take on other attorneys and grow their practice. And I thought that's a nice pitch, But I'm at a place now where I am drowning in business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had to bring on another paralegal to support me. Haven't had some trouble with getting her hired, but that's neither here nor there. And now I have 2 support attorneys that support me part-time. And that's just my own just wanting to avoid hiring somebody full-time. Maybe it's just wanting to keep the money for myself, but I am quickly approaching a place where it would be irresponsible to not hire somebody more.
Right. When you say support attorneys, these are attorneys that do appearances, or are they attorneys that handle certain amount of cases on a contract basis? They do some writing and some research for me, things that are, longer projects that I'll be honest, I don't have time for, because I'm making somewhere between 3 and 4 court appearances a day right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty busy. I have them make appearances when I need to, but I got some pretty savvy young attorneys who do good research and writing. And so I don't know what I would do without them right now, but the question is just, I'm hitting a tipping point for sure. Okay.
And to be honest, I thought I was at a tipping point to a degree before I started doing Unbundled, but I had no idea how busy I could be. I really didn't know my own capacity to sign new business.
Right.
It's been wild. It's been really wild. I'm like, I don't know. I don't work for Unbundled. I don't care. I care about my business. I don't care how successful Unbundled is, to be honest, but it is wild that I've tried, listen, I've done other paid per lead campaigns before. I did Nolo. I don't know if I don't want me trash talking other people on here, but I did Martindale Nolo. I spent a ton of money on it. Things went well for a couple months, kind of, but it was just like, maybe making double what I invested in a month or something like that, then not getting anything for a month. And it was a lot of calling people on bogus leads. I mean, I can't tell you how many, it was a lot cheaper. It was $50 or $60 a lead, but so many of them would say, I never filled out anything. I don't know what you're talking about, or there's no person with that name here, whatever. It was so much of my time. I'm busy. I don't have time to make 50 bogus phone calls a month.
Right.
And so I got kind of frustrated with that about the same time that I got approached about Unbundled. And every single lead, of course, there are the occasional ones I can't reach, it happens, but overwhelmingly, they're all real. It's just a question of money and whether it's a case I want, but just like anybody else, it's a case, but it's just about money. But they're all, I don't know what's being done to qualify the leads, but they're qualified. Sounds like there must be an actual person doing it, not just a computer algorithm saying, this person is a lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there isn't a person interviewing the client, but we are very transparent and upfront with clients about what it is they can expect to be, putting down to get started with an attorney. For criminal cases, we're usually looking at $1,500 to $2,500 down to get rolling, and then it's payment plans from there. So that's one of the things that we're very transparent about on the front end. But let's kind of go back in time a little bit from when you first started with Unbundled Attorney. And you started working with Jack Dolance, who's one of our support lawyers. Were there some things that that Mr. Dolance shared with you that were a little bit different than the way that you have practiced before that you found started to improve your outcomes with working the leads?
First of all, Jack kicks butt. He's the best. And he's been a huge help. And I will say before I go into that answer, that's been one of the best parts of this is having this person that I check in with and I say, this isn't working. This is working. To be honest with Jack, it's just been me and him going, holy shit. I don't know if I can cuss on you. Holy crap. I can't believe it. Every time it's just been more celebrating together. But, I was already pretty tenacious in how I approached responding to leads, making sure I texted and called and the one, I guess, to be honest, it just kind of what he was recommending really fit what I was doing, which was, if you call, if you text, and if you call, don't leave a message, and then you text, you're going to get a response the overwhelming majority of the time. And I guess the one big change is I was using phone calls a lot more than I was using text messages, which obviously we still spend a lot of time on the phone, but people are much quicker to respond to a text. They'll get a missed call and just let it pass. They get a message, they might check it days later or something, but by that time it's too late. But when I send somebody a text message, they get back pretty quickly. And if they don't send back a text, I would say almost every time I don't get a text back, they're just not interested. The people who are interested will respond back. And so I guess I would say Jack recommended that I make a phone call and don't leave a message the first time, which makes a lot of sense. I was definitely leaving messages, which were just getting, I don't know, maybe a lot of people don't listen to their messages these days. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then I started texting right away, and the response to the text messages is great.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty almost 100% guaranteed delivery rate. And when you first start calling a lead, they're not necessarily going to recognize that phone number. Right. And so, just like anyone else, if they don't know that phone number, they may or may not answer it. Some folks will, but a lot of folks aren't because they're not going to recognize it. So when you can then send a quick text to make sure they know that, hey, I'm the attorney that's responding to your request for help with this criminal case or whatever legal matter is, they're pretty quick to respond and potentially call you back. So you kind of call them, send them a quick text, maybe call them again from there.
Yeah, I call, I don't leave a message. So here's the nice thing I have set up with you guys so that the people have an option to do one of two things. Well, one of three things. They can wait for me to get back to them. They can make an appointment on my calendar, which that's another thing Jack talked me into doing that I thought was just going to be a nuisance, but he talked me into setting up on that Calendly.
Calendly, yeah.
It's great. I just see these appointments peppered into my days. I've got one tomorrow with a guy, it's some people really like to do that. I think that feature looks nice. So they can just wait for me to call back. I can do the Calendly thing, or they somehow can call me directly as they're filling out the lead. So I get a call from this Las Vegas number, and I know every time this is somebody calling me with, who's interested. And when people take that step, they're always interested, right? Maybe money will mean they won't, issues with finances will mean they won't hire maybe, but they're interested if they're taking that extra step. And so getting that right away and not missing it, because it's easy to miss an email coming in and a text when you get busy. But responding right away and getting those calls is huge. And that's been the biggest thing for me is I'll do anything I possibly can to respond right away. Because anybody in this business knows you can wait 5 minutes and the person's hired somebody else. Somebody's online researching. If they don't get a person, they move on to the next person on Google, or they move on to finding it. Nobody wants to separate their research of which attorney they're going to use into I'll do some research now, wait to hear back and do some later. If you're like me, you just go online and you say, if somebody didn't answer, I'm calling the next person, and so that their ability to call me right away, or my ability to get back to them right away, is what has made this work so well.
Yeah. Well, it's especially true with criminal leads, DUI. I mean, these people are facing criminal charges. I mean, I think for most folks, they are not going to be able to sleep until they know they have an attorney on their side that's immediately addressing this.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. They're gonna keep calling until they talk to someone that's going to be able to address what's going on. Right.
It's a huge part of it. I talk to a lot of people who just are frantic. And at the end of our initial call, they feel a lot better. Not because it's so zen and peaceful to talk to that I just set everyone at ease, but they have information, then they feel like they've got somebody on their side just from talking. And, I'm pretty careful to not rush people, to hear their side of things, to give them some idea of what they can expect, because, I'll talk to a lot of people who will say, you're the first person I've talked to who's willing to give me more than 2 minutes of their time. And, that means a lot to people. People are in this business in criminal defense. They're putting so much faith in you. They're putting their freedom or their future or their job or whatever, everything they have on the line. And they can just hope that they didn't hire some scumbag or some, terrible attorney who's not going to care about them. And the only thing they have to go off of is what you say. So, a good sales pitch matters. Making somebody feel comfortable goes a long way with them.
Well, a tenet of the sales pitch is just taking the time with folks, right? And really listening, hearing out what's going on, asking questions, and just being attentive to their concerns and what they're scared most, what they're understandably scared about, right?
Yeah.
These criminal charges can have serious effects, on, like you said, like their freedom, their job, their ability to drive, all these different things that can be very life-changing for a lot of folks. And this is certainly true for other practice areas as well, family law, immigration, but you're absolutely right about the urgency. So you talked about that Direct Connect live transfer, which is a live transfer system.
What do you call it? Direct Connect live transfer?
Yeah, the Direct Connect live transfer. So when the person submits the request, we're giving them the option to either call and be connected to a lawyer right now. Yeah, and so you've got that set up where you're getting those live transfers from that 702 number. Right,
Dave, how does that work when they're filling it out online? Is it like at the end of filling out all the information, does it say, would you like to connect with the attorney now? Or how do they do that?
Yeah, they actually get connected to you. They see your profile page.
Right.
So you can go in your Unbundled Attorney account. You can see what your profile page looks. You can customize it. You can add your website, customize the profile. Right. You can, get reviews from previous clients. But then we'll also have a modal that'll pop up and say, hey, you've been connected with Mr. London. Choose your next step, which is call and connect me now, which, any attorney that uses Direct Connect and the Pro Plan has that option. Then you also have the secondary option, which is really wise for you to get into place, which is the integration with Calendly, which then enables us to give us the secondary option, which is schedule an appointment for later.
Yeah.
Right? Because even if the person can talk to a lawyer right now, they're going to do that. They're going to transfer right in. That's when you get that live call. But sometimes they're at work or they're doing something else and they may not be able to do so. But if you give them the option to be able to book directly on your calendar and then they book that time, for later that day or the next day, that sometimes will actually stop them from continuing to shop for a lawyer because they know they have some time to set aside with the attorney they were connected with. And then they can get back to the job knowing that, hey, I've got that appointment a little bit later on today or tomorrow or whatever it might be. And so they don't, necessarily keep calling.
Yeah, that moment is really important. Like you're right. I think you're right. They can set an appointment. They can go, all right, I did my part. I have something set up. And the thing I always do, I see that appointment come through and I send the person a message. I say, hi, I'm Josh London. I see you set up a consultation with me for Wednesday. If you'd like to speak today, I'd be happy to connect with you. If you'd prefer to wait till Wednesday, we already have an appointment. And a lot of people, they say, oh, I do want to talk. I just thought you weren't available. But I think giving them that option also is another level of like customer service that people seem to enjoy. So I try to do that right away. But I was hesitant on the Calendly thing. I didn't want people putting stuff on my calendar, which is already so crazy looking. But it's been helpful. It's been really nice. It's a pretty cool tool also.
Well, you kind of talked about how you just see people just pop on your calendar. You got a consult already set up. You didn't have to do anything, right? And it's just I love it. And it's really key that when you do have them booked directly on your calendar, that you're reaching out, just letting them know, hey, we received that booking. I'm the attorney. Happy to, and we got that on the calendar. But if you want to talk sooner, I'm available to do so. Here's my contact information, so that the client is getting some personal contact, some outreach. and not just necessarily relying on them showing up for that appointment. If we just rely on the appointment without having any contact, you may have already experienced this. Sometimes you get some folks not showing up for those appointments. So to the degree to which you can reach out and just, and I would recommend this for any attorney that's working the system, or anytime you have any system that's booking an appointment, even if it's a paralegal or a secretary or something like that, and someone books an appointment on your calendar, that you're reaching out and confirming that, hey, you got that appointment, we're scheduled in. And then if you can talk to them sooner, especially criminal and DUI cases, because the better.
That's right. And any defense attorneys who are watching or listening know that a lot of our appointments don't show up. People, there are many different types of people that we deal with. And there's a type of person who doesn't keep appointments. And that tends to be some of our clients. And we get stood up a lot if we try to set something out 3 or 4 days. It's got to be then. It's, you got to be dealing with it while you have the person's attention.
Yeah. So you're talking maybe to that same day or the following day, the absolute latest day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people have been pretty good with these Calendly appointments, but generally, I think the further you set out an appointment, the more likely you are to just be stood up.
Yeah. A lot of our attorneys will actually put a setting in Calendly to only have appointments available within like 48 business hours, 72, something like that. I mean, so the person goes, okay, well, I got to book something in like, the next day, you want to make sure that if it comes in on a Friday or Saturday, that they can book on a Monday, Tuesday. So you got to give enough of a window. So maybe you put 72 hours, something like that. Yeah. But in general, it's like, we're not letting them book a week out, because that's, we just know that if it goes that long, that person's going to have hired someone long since before that.
Yeah, it's just a bit, I'm sure it's true in all practice areas that deal with individual clients, maybe not business clients. If you're representing Target, they're not doing that. But yeah, if somebody's looking for a family law attorney, it's probably in the moment that their ex pissed them off and they want to take care. They're keeping the kid from them. They don't want to wait. If it's an immigration, it's the moment when they're saying, gosh, am I going to be deported or how do I account? Whatever it is, they're reaching out in the moment they're thinking about it. People don't live their lives only thinking about one thing. They want an answer when they're doing the research.
Yeah, that's right. And I appreciate the fact that you shared that, when you get that direct connect line, you're doing what you can to be able to answer that inbound call. I think
I'll hop off with just about anybody.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because you see that Unbundled Attorney number coming in, and that's a live lead coming off the site, ready to talk to a lawyer right now. And there isn't that is the highest conversion percentage opportunity. Yeah. Than when you're answering the call, because if they're calling you, that means they want to talk to you right now. Oh, and when they're concerned, they're thinking about their case and they want to talk to a lawyer right now. So you can be responsive and you can set up the firm, so to speak, to be set up to be responsive to that, even if it can't necessarily be. I mean, there'll become a day maybe where you can't always answer the inbound line. And I'm sure there's times already where you can't do that when you're in court or whatever. But do you have a system in place, whether it be a backup receptionist or a paralegal or something like that, that can be responsive and then get them to an attorney to talk to straight away?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in the hierarchy of the people that are most important to me in the world, it goes something like the people considering giving me their money, and then my wife and kids, and then everybody else. Those people are so important. I'll hop off the phone with anybody to answer for the people who are considering hiring me. That's, we're in a business where you don't know your next paycheck. You don't know you don't have a salary, and maybe you give yourself a salary or whatever. But, signing cases is what makes you feel like you're able to provide, you're able to relax. And I'll tell you something that's scary about Unbundled is the leads are expensive. If you compare it to other direct lead services, they're 4 or 5 times more expensive. But I can tell you, I have spent about $20,000 in those 5 months. And I think that, to me, if you just said that to me 5 months ago, I'd have gone, no way am I going to spend that much. But I've made, like I said, 5, 6 times that amount. Mm-hmm. And so it is scary. It's scary when I talk to other attorneys about telling them, I think this is something you should do. attorneys are scared by that, but I think when I did the other lead services, you can see that you're getting what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even imagine not making my money back in a month, because it's not even been a close call, not even in the first month. I mean, even in the first month, I was making, a 500% return on investment. But
Mm-hmm.
I should say this just came to my mind is, those other direct lead services. You're not that this is part of the problem. Like, I feel comfortable telling my buddy Eric, who's across the hall from me, is a great attorney, is practicing criminal defense. You should sign up for this. I want, it's good for you. It's going to be good for your business, because I know that on the leads I get, I'm the only attorney getting them. I'm not competing with other attorneys.
Yeah.
I don't care if he signs up, it'll just make him money and I'll be making money. But the other lead services, they would say it would go to 2 or 3 attorneys, but I'm pretty sure it's going to more. And then you're all of a sudden in a dogfight. A person is trying to find an attorney, and all of a sudden they're getting hammered with calls. And I don't even think the customers like that. It's not comfortable for them to all of a sudden have to tell their story 5 times, compete over price. They just want to have told their story to somebody and stick with that person if you give them a chance to. And I love it. I love that it's so nice that you're the only attorney it's sent to. It used to drive me absolutely crazy, because then the other lead services, if you wait 5 minutes because you're in a court appearance, that money is wasted because that person's gone. They've already talked to 2 or 3 other people, and good for those other people, but it's not helpful.
Yeah, it's money out the door, right? And it's stressful, right? When you know that I have to, if that is the scenario, that you have to be on top of that, like literally that moment. Otherwise, the opportunity's gone, right? Yeah. But more to the point, we've been doing this for over a decade, and that decision was made, when we first started. And it really just has to do with, it's that one client to one attorney experience. And there's something going on, or they need attorney in a different jurisdiction, or something happened with that attorney. We can get them to a second attorney if we need to. But just that idea of like, I'm trying to connect with a lawyer. I'm looking for someone affordable. And, and then make that request, and then they just get connected to that one lawyer. Here's your ML attorney, right? Here's his name, here's his contact. Now let's facilitate making that connection happen.
Yeah.
And doing that to the best of our ability, because the reality is, for any of our ML attorneys, they all have the legal capability to be able to provide services to that client, more or less, if they've been practicing for the number of years and they understand the practice of law, right? And then also they learn the business model. And so in general, most of our clients don't need to talk to more than one lawyer to make a decision about, to be able to hire someone, unless there's a disconnect on the financial piece, right? Which we can talk a little bit more about, kind of the ways where you work around with folks on that budget, on that end. But, it's one lead, one lawyer. So because you're right, the client doesn't want to be, fill out. Everyone has that fear of like filling out a form on the internet. If anyone did ever filled something out on like Lending Tree and they got called by like 40 people or something like that. So there's that kind of natural concern. If they submit a request, it's going to happen.
It's something that it's all too common in the way we all do business now. You expect to get 100 emails every time you fill out a form. But, here's the thing, especially in this business, criminal defense, and probably in things like family law, things that are high stakes, stressful situations for people. It's not something that they want to talk about over and over and over. Somebody who's charged with criminal sexual conduct or DWI, whatever, it's kind of embarrassing. They don't want to be calling around, most people at least, going, all right, I'm telling the story again. I'm telling the story again. If you give them an opportunity to only talk to one person, that's all they want to do. They just want to be done. And I always say to people, you're handing off the burden to me. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do and where you need to be, but you don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm going to take care of it. And that's what people want, is to say, it's off my back, it's off my shoulders. Somebody else is going to take care of it, and they're going to make sure I get the best outcome. And people don't want to be searching it. They want that, what you call it, one lawyer, one client.
One client, one lawyer.
That's what people want.
That's right. And more to the point as well, the most valuable asset you have as an attorney is your time. Right. And so, you can invest less per se in terms of advertising costs, but I think the thing that a lot of lawyers don't necessarily take into consideration is, well, how much does it cost to take the time to have to talk to 5 times as many folks? And that's really what we've always tried to do, is just try to get the most qualified lead that's possible in terms of just folks that are looking to hire a lawyer, being transparent and upfront about, how much that's typically going to cost, try to mitigate the amount of folks that think it's going to be free. You're always going to have folks, even if you've, yelled in their face that you're going to be paying for a lawyer, they're still going to hope that maybe they can find someone they can tell their story to, that'll help them out for free. So that's just normal. That's the internet. But in general, it's someone that, has an active case, ready to hire somebody, and they connect them up with that lawyer so that you're having the least amount of conversations necessary in order to retain a client. Because that asset of, most attorneys are billing $200, $300, $400 an hour. If you got to spend 2-3 hours to retain each client, that gets pretty expensive. That's $800 to $1,000 in your own time just to acquire the client.
Oh, it's terrible too. It's like, it's so hard to find time and to schedule things without that schedule being interrupted by something that happens with another case. The time is so precious. And, I thought, I don't know how to explain this, but when I did the other lead service, I didn't really think I'm too worried about how much time. I thought the more time I'm calling people for new business, that's the time that's best spent. But that's only true if it's returning something. When you're not getting it, it gets pretty frustrating quick. So yeah, I'm signing something like 1 out of every 5 cases. I think.
Leads, yeah.
One
Leads
out of every 5 leads, right?
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. I'm probably talking to 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 out of every 4 people I actually connect with are hiring me. And some of them, part of their problem sometimes is it's not really a case I want. I don't want to handle that pardon or that complex appeal that I don't think is a good case. Sometimes, usually, if I don't get hired, it's financial.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. People are going to call with hopes and prayers about what it's going to cost. But there are ways to alleviate that. I often answer the phone and people say, I got hired today by a guy. Actually, I won't say who, but I got hired I just got called by somebody from Unbundled, and he was calling around. He was saying, man, somebody told me that this is going to be the cost and I just don't have that money. And I think for any defense attorney not doing payment plans, the only reason to not do payment plans is that you don't want more business, because I write off, I do payment plans for anybody. I just, I have limits on it, but the amount of more money I make because I'm doing those payment plans is because without question, it's amazing. So I always tell people it's going to be a problem if you agree to a payment plan you can't do. And I explain what that problem would be, but I write off very small amounts of money at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, right? Because this is the, every single, with almost zero exception, attorney that we work with that does criminal defense or DUI, that first comes on board at least, has one of 2 options. They say, pay me the full amount up front or give me 50% down, and then, maybe a couple of payments on the rest. And that's at least the initial investment. But a lot of them are understandably concerned about offering payment plans, because as soon as you enter an appearance on a criminal case, you're pretty much committing to be representing that client, for that, for the course of that matter, right? The course of that case. And so there's a certain degree of fear, understandable fear, that like, okay, I enter that appearance, they've only paid me $1,000, $1,500. Well, what, and I'm now in a position where I have to start to, I'm going to have to represent this client regardless. How can I trust that these folks are going to pay me over time? Yeah. So how have you, what we probably going to do is give some examples of, maybe some numbers, something, but like, how have you thought about that relative to some of those understandable concerns from lawyers? I agree wholeheartedly that payment plans make a lot of sense, but what are your thoughts around that?
I think, first of all, I think about it every day, because every day I'm thinking about the payment plan to offer somebody. Yeah. And I think about how it could turn out. And I think about what I need to say to them to make sure they know how important it is they pay me. but there's just no question. I mean, people pay their bills in this business. Very few people don't. There's always one or two people who aren't paying enough. But what that looks like is, this gentleman who's just hiring me right now that I was talking about, I quoted $10,000. He said, I can't afford this. Other person wants $7,500 up front or something like that. And I said, I'll do $2,000 up front, and we'll do 5 monthly payments of $2,000. Can you do that? And he said, oh yeah, I can definitely do that. But if he doesn't pay his bill, it's not going to look like I don't get any money. What'll end up happening is he'll make the first 3 payments and then start to struggle, and he'll make a half a payment. And in the end, out of the 10,000, if he doesn't pay his bill, I'm getting 7,500 or I'm getting 8,000. It's not like I'm just not being paid for my work. It never happens that way, right?
Yeah.
People always make the first couple payments. And you can withdraw. Most judges, it's not automatic that you can withdraw because of a fee issue. But I've never had a judge make me stay on a case unless it was right up against trial. To be honest, I've never tried to withdraw at the last minute like that. But I can't imagine a judge in Minnesota, if you say this person just can't afford the agreement we made, I can't imagine a judge making you stay on. Now, I'm telling you that I write off a very small amount of money, and I withdraw from, less than 3 or 4 cases a year, maybe. Very, very few. But the amount of money I make because I do that it's a game-changing amount of money. I can't imagine getting by if I didn't take payment plans.
Yeah. So well, let's unpack kind of the different ways you structure the payment plans, and maybe we can be specific about it to give some lawyers some ideas of a way to structure this. First of all, how do you typically process payments? Do you use a merchant processing solution like LawPay or something to do the payments on an automatic basis?
I was supposed to be signed up for LawPay by now, but I'm not, because I hired this paralegal. She was supposed to take care of it, and she quit after 10 days. So it was a great experience. But I will be signing up for it because the service I use, you can't do automatic payments.
Yeah.
What I do, however, is whenever possible, I try to arrange the payment plan to say, I am going to run your credit card and get a credit card authorization on this day for this amount without any prior authorization, without any additional authorization. And that does make it a little bit easier. A lot of people will, you'll have to still call them and say it didn't go through or whatever. And to be honest, it adds a little legwork calling about payments all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it takes 15 minutes of my day each day. It's not like it's a ton of time.
Yeah.
But I try to arrange it so I can run it without asking them.
Yeah.
And
so you're kind of manually running as opposed to being an automatic run. So you get the authorization to then do the payment plan on a specific schedule. So later on, you'll have, a system like LawPay that'll do that process automatically for you. But for now, at least you just kind of go ahead and process that payment according to the schedule that you've already agreed to with your client.
Right. And with LawPay, which I think, you guys promote because it does that automatic payment.
Yeah, it's the user interface of the recurring billing payments. That's why most of our attorneys use that. And unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately for LawPay, it's the only solution out there. It had no use to exist, but now they got purchased by Practice Panther. It's really the only one in the industry that has that functionality.
Yeah, which is bizarre to me. I don't know why they all don't offer it, but sorry, somebody's blowing up my phone. It made me forget my line of thinking there. So it's not, if somebody's listening to this and they're saying, gosh, I don't want to deal with taking payments. It's going to be a pain in the butt. You're going to have to track people down. That just is true. I mean, whether you do reoccurring payments or not, people's credit cards are going to not go through. People are going to want to change the payment method. Sometimes they're going to want to do cash, sometimes check. And sometimes people are going to be a week or 2 weeks late on payments. I mean, it's just something you have to deal with. There's no question. And it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But it's a small pain in the butt for the reward, right? If you're not willing to do that small amount of work for the additional money you make, you're making a poor economic decision.
Well, yeah. And, when I interview attorneys that maybe did payment plans in the past and stopped doing it, in general, what I typically hear is that they were representing a client. That client defaulted on the payment plan, and they had to do some work for that client that they weren't paid for, and they felt burned by that, right? And so they're like, okay, so in other words, it's almost like and it's understandable that like you're advocating for a client, you're trying to help them protect their freedom, and then they're not paying you for your services. That you take that one could easily take that personally.
Oh yeah, it grinds
feel
your gears when that happens.
Burned by that, right? But what I think what happens, so then they go, well, I'm not going to do payment plans anymore, right? Based on that one experience, as opposed to, in the profession, every attorney is also a business owner, right? They're self-employed, but everyone has the opportunity to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And an entrepreneur is someone that's looking at, has to look objectively at their business and their business plan and take into consideration, well, what makes the most sense financially for the business, irrespective, and not looking at it for subjectively personally, right? And so I think oftentimes what they're failing to take into consideration, which I think is what you're alluding to, Josh, is that, if I were to not offer payment plans, and let's say I was just doing the $7,500 deal, right? And let's say I had 10 clients, maybe you'll sign up one client, right, for that $7,500 deal, and you'll get that full amount up front. And, let's also be honest, if they're paying half down, there's, some of those folks still don't pay even when they're getting half down, right? But let's say you get 1 out of 10 or something that does the 7,500, or usually it's probably more like, let's say 1 out of 15. And so you don't have to worry about the payments, and that person pays in full. But let's say that you're doing that $7,500 deal, and you're now retaining, because of the fact that you offer $1,000 down or $15 or $2,000, and you kind of break things up into payments. Typically we find that most of our attorneys are going to be retaining at least 2 to 3 times as many clients if they're allowing the clients to get started for, a fifth down, a quarter down.
Dave, I would actually be shocked if it's that little. I mean, I think it's probably a high. I mean, you would know, I guess you've looked at the statistics, but
yeah, I mean, just trying to be conservative here.
The number of people that it's easy to forget how few people have any savings, right? People have jobs. A lot of people, they might be able to afford a certain amount every month because they can change how they're using their paychecks, but not a lot of people just have $7,500 that's discretionary. It may seem to the attorneys, I have $7,500. Like it seems like, some people might not, but enough people do. That just isn't true. Yeah. I always give people a chance to make a bigger down payment. I don't start by saying, why don't you only put 20% down? I ask them what they can afford.
Yeah.
People, if I was needing, 50% down, I bet I would do half or less of the business I do. Probably less. I mean, even on DWIs, people don't go out at night, get drunk and say, no big deal, I've got $5,000 saved in case I need a lawyer. They got to go back to their wife and they got to say, gosh, we got to budget this in. You work and we'll take this much out of your paycheck and this much out of my paycheck. And that's how they do it. People don't want to go dig into their 401k, or they don't have one,
Yeah.
So I think it's a terrible idea, but I know a lot of great attorneys who do it. And maybe some attorneys aren't as driven by the financial end of this business. If you're just driven by, having 20 clients at a time and doing the best work, that's great for you. I don't think that, you don't want to deal with chasing down payments. But if you're like me, you want to do good legal work while making the most money you possibly can. Because what you said is right. Enough people don't look at this as a business. They just say, I'm a lawyer first and a businessman second, or they don't think about that element at all.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to go into private defense, you have to be a businessman first.
Yeah. Yeah. So to finish that example, if it's a 1 out of 15 conversion, if it's without a payment plan, for example, and then you can start offering payment plans, and now you convert 1 out of 5 of your leads into paying clients, and that's saying no to some folks because of certain cases you don't want to do. And let's say, all those folks only pay you 80%, right? 80% of $7,500 is say $6,000. $6,000 times 3 is $18,000, right? That's 3 times as much revenue. But, you have to be prepared for the fact that, 1 out of every 10 clients may only pay half the deal, right? But you rather have 80% of a much huger pie, 3 times the size of the pie. I'd rather 80% of 3 times the size than
Yeah, you're hitting it on the nose right now. It's hard to articulate, but mathematically, you're just making a lot more money and you're representing a lot more people. And just the fact that representing more people means you're going to represent more people in the future. The best cases aren't from some advertising source, they're referrals. So you got to represent people to then later get those referrals. I just got hired on a murder case from a guy represented on a DWI, but you got to get to know people who will refer you business. So it's not a question. If somebody's listening to this or watching this and they take one thing away, it would probably be, if you're not doing payment plans, you really should, if you care about money.
Well, yeah. And there is another consideration here, which is, a lot of those folks that, that guy called her, like you said, the gentleman you spoke about was calling around. He was probably not necessarily going to be in a position to hire private representation if someone didn't offer him this option. And so there's no question that as a result of the types of payment plans that our attorneys offer and what they're willing and open to leading with and the systems they have in place that enables them to do so, that there are a lot of folks every single day throughout the entire network, probably more than just a few, that are able to now hire private lawyers to represent them in these criminal matters that otherwise would not be able to do so.
That's right. And you know what the other thing is about how you say it, right? First of all, I don't recommend that you take a payment plan of $500 a month for 24 months, right? That's a terrible idea. That's going to be way too much work. You're going to be chasing down money forever. You want to make sure that you get it, set it up in a way that it's going to be paid off before the case is over.
That's right. Number one.
4 months, or 5 month, or a 6 month payment plan at the most. But you got to set it up so that you're getting paid before everything's done. I mean, people will skip out if their cases are over. That's true.
Why don't we give like a hypothetical, a couple examples, right? Sure. Average kind of case you do, what the typical fee would be, and then what are kinds of examples of payment plans that you've done in the past to work around people's budget?
So I charge $5,000 for a DWI, right? A lot of DWIs come in. I typically, the first thing I say is, how much can you afford down? Because if the person is going to say a higher number, I'm going to let that be the foundation, right? If they say 2,500 or they say, I'll put it all down, I'm not going to fight them on it. I'm going to give them that chance. But then when they ask, well, what are the payment options? I usually say, what I usually do is 1,250 down. So a quarter down, and 1,250 a month for 4 months. And that's pretty affordable for people on DWIs. I do go as low as $1,000 payments if they need help. And, depending on their reliability, I may even go $100 or $200 less than that. But that 1,250 a month makes up the lion's share of my DWIs. That's about the breakdown. It's about 20 to 25% in monthly installments.
I had another attorney that he just says, instead of doing, 2 payments, I do 4 or 5 or 6.
Yep.
I just break it up into quarters, fifths, or sixths.
Yeah.
Right. So get the deposit. If it's a quarter, like you said, $1,250, and then, 4 they got 3, 4 more payments, right? They can miss a payment. You still got time to do the case, right?
And they will. I mean, you're going to be dealing with people who say, I had a funeral, somebody died unexpectedly, we had to pay for the funeral, my car broke down. And, you can give them a little time, because frankly, these cases take a while and people come around. I can't emphasize how few cases I end up having a balance left over. It's just not even worth mentioning. But
can you put a number on that? Just like to alleviate concern on that, like 1 out of every 20, 30, 40, 10. I mean, where you're not getting paid the full amount. I mean, just
1 out of every 40 or 50.
Yeah, that's what we've heard.
Yeah, it's not common. And even as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, oh, that's even less than I thought it was. But it is. I kind of did the math there in my head. And right now, I can think of 1, 2 people that I represent that seem to not be finishing the last payment of their bill. But even on those cases, one of them I got 15 out of 20,000, and the other one I got the first 3 payments out of 5,000. So I got $3,750. And we don't have any merchandise. There's no cost of goods sold. You don't have to worry about overhead. We whatever we take in it's profit. So if you get a little less, it might hurt your pride. It might anger you, but you're not harmed by it. But it's really rare. It's really rare. And in the end of the year, it may be a total of $15,000-$20,000 worth of the fees. It's not a ton.
Yeah. We're talking maybe 5%.
What's that?
We're talking like really 5%. That would be 1 out of 20, but you said 1 out of 40. So we're talking like 2%. I mean, it's just like,
it's not much.
The thing is, like, it's almost like if you don't allow yourself to feel, if lawyers don't allow themselves to get burned by someone it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But if you use the right tools, you kind of break things down and you actually just run the numbers and look at it. We already know it's a conversion rate. It's like 3 times that of, the 50% down. If you can do the, quarters or fifths or sixths, like that $1,000 down and so forth, because you're differentiating not on the total cost, right? A lot of attorneys will rush to the bottom, race to the bottom. Well, 5,000, I'll do it for 4. I'll do it for 3. I'll do it for 2.
That's not what people
doing
want.
It for $5,000, right? You're just saying, I'll start for a G.
Yep.
Right. And we'll just break all the payments of a G.
People are suspicious of hiring a person who's less money. They're not suspicious of hiring somebody who's letting them make payments. Yeah, there's a part of people that go, if I spend less, I'm paying for somebody who's not as good, which to a degree is probably true, right? If you're taking on cases for $1,000 a piece, you're not doing the same kind of work. That's just a fact. But by pricing it the same and giving people a chance to pay, they know they're getting the same kind of quality in their minds. That's what they think. I'm getting the same quality and I can pay this off. But it's I've always done
in reality, if you're actually offering more flexible options than anybody else, they're differentiating on terms. It's basically what we're doing, right? Differentiating in terms of, well, what are the payment terms? Right? Well, $1,000 instead of $2,500 up front, right? Then even if there was a breakage, let's say it's 5%, it's not that much, but you could build that into your pricing, right? Where like whatever was the breakage amount that like of what you don't collect because you're off payment plans, you can build that into the price because and so now it's $5,250 is your new rate, right?
Yeah,
and that takes into consideration the 5% you're not going to get. But you're still going to get the higher conversion rate, but you're wipe that off. You don't. But the thing is, you don't have to, right? Because you're already making, like you said, you're doing so well anyway. But like, if anyone was really concerned,
you're right.
You can build it in the model. If it really bothered you.
It's a good way to think about it. I think the attorneys that aren't doing that have never done it, right? They don't know. I think very few attorneys are doing that, making all the extra money for doing payment plans, and then change their mind and say, I don't want, when you're doing that, you see how many people can afford you when you do that. So you keep doing it. But if you've never done it, you think I'm a criminal defense attorney, I know my clients, a lot of them are irresponsible. If I don't get a lot of the fee up front, I'm getting hosed. I understand that fear, it does. There's some common sense there that seems like it should be true, but it isn't. It's not how it works out. I mean, it's just, that fear is just from not having tried it, probably. Yeah. But listen, when somebody doesn't pay you a large chunk of a fee, you do get, it does grind your gears. And part of it's just the principle. Sometimes I care more when somebody owes me $500 than when they owe me $2,000. And it's partially just because if a person was a jackass to represent, I want every dollar they have, but sometimes I'll, if I particularly like somebody, fine, you paid me enough. I'm not mad at you. I appreciate you staying in touch and trying to pay me. And it depends on the person. You're going to already dislike those people you're going after for money. And that's part of the thing too, is knowing who's going to be like that. You start to learn that people are nickel and diming you and are already like complaining from the get-go. Maybe they fired another attorney. You're going to end up pissed off about whatever happens in that case. It's not going to be fun to represent that person. That's the kind of thing you end up with a complaint to the board of professional responsibility and leaving the case early. It can be, you got to be careful who you get hired by, not just take the case you can.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk just a little bit about, we were kind of circling this a little earlier where you really take the time with each client, but we just walk through a few different best practices that you've discovered in terms of that, handling that consultation and kind of, what kind of like that phase one of the calls, phase two, phase three, how do you kind of take someone through typical consultation?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is it's a little bit different if it's a DWI versus a different kind of case. With DWIs, what I think is really important is, at least in Minnesota, they're unnecessarily complicated. You have a criminal case, you've got a license revocation. The interplay is hard to explain. So I've developed a very simple way to explain, here's how those two cases are going to be set up. I make sure the person knows I'm going to take care of everything, but I want you to know what you're facing. So I explain how that's going to go. I explain first and foremost what I'm going to do. I tell them, I'm going to let the court know I'm your lawyer. I'm going to make sure that I can tell you where you need to be and when you need to be there. I'm going to send you a retainer agreement, and I'm also going to give you some advice on things I want you to do proactively in there, right? I let them know I'm going to tell you the things you need to do, right? I do that right off the bat. And then I give them an idea of how long it'll take to receive discovery. I try to be very honest that there can be delays, that, there's going to be a waiting period. And then once I get through kind of the procedure and what they can expect, then I ask them a little bit about themselves. I say, how we're going to handle this case depends on you and your family and your job and what's important to you. So let's talk about those things. And then, depending on the type of case, I may ask them what really happened. Sometimes you don't want to do that at first in a criminal case, but it depends. It depends. I think people do like having a chance to explain their version of events, but you do have to be a little bit careful about that in this business. Typically I give people some chance to do that. They tell me what they expect the evidence should really show. Did anything seem weird to you? I give them a chance to unload a little bit. But my primary goal is to say, I know this is scary. It's the state of Minnesota versus you, right? That's scary. They have a lot of resources. It's the state. But here's why you don't have to be as scared as you think you have to be. Here's how it'll work. And here's what I'm going to do for you. And when it is really scary, it's about acknowledging that, if you're representing somebody in a murder case or a criminal sexual conduct case, part of it is saying, I know that this is really scary. I want you to know you can call me at any time. Here's some of the cases I've handled in the past, and here's kind of what you can expect. The risk, one thing you don't want to do is set expectations if you don't know, because people will grab on to the best thing you said. If you say, it could be option A or it could be option B, option A is much better, they're going to grab onto that. And they're going to say, well, you said it would be this. You don't want to set expectations at a level that's going to end up being incorrect. So I'm really careful to do that. But yeah, that's my practice. Usually, if you go over the full procedure, you ask them a little bit about themselves, you give them a chance to tell what happened to a degree, they've already found their person then. Right. They just want
what are some of the things you would ask them about themselves?
People, first of all, people just want to have their hands held. Right. Again, this is something I always say, you're not going to know what to expect. And that's proper. Right. If you knew what to expect, it'd mean you've been through this too many times. Right. So it's good that you don't know. And that's why you hire an attorney. But I ask them, what do they do for a living? Do they have kids? Where are they from? Are they an immigrant? Are they the two things that are essential to ask, at least in Minnesota, I'm sure most places are you a citizen? What's your status if you're not? And are you a military veteran or active military? Right. Again, it's just, it matters for how you represent them in a huge way here. We have some really great laws as it applies to veterans and active military. But it also lets them know that you're going to treat them like a human being. People just want to hear that you're going to hold their hand. You're going to take everything into account and you care about them, So I try to walk through all that stuff. And once I get to know those things, sometimes I'll explain, here's why I asked that, here's how it can affect the case. We'll figure that out when we get a chance to look at the evidence.
Okay.
And then I set an expectation. I say, here is the timeline. Here's what I'll do when I get the evidence, and then we'll sit down and have a conversation.
Right. So you're like, okay, so here's a general what we're dealing with this case. Here's the phases and what it means. Here's what the things I'm going to be doing for you, and the things that need to be done right away. Right. And then you kind of open it up. Tell me about yourself. What are the considerations here? What kind of work you doing? Immigration status. You're married. What are and I think a lot of these things we're evaluating potential consequences, right? In some ways, and also perhaps to some degree their stability and like what might make sense from a payment arrangement. I'm sure that's a little bit there too. And so, but also gives you an opportunity to get to know a little bit better, and then you hearing that out and then feeling like they know you better by the fact that you're listening to their situation and maybe being a little bit more personal, perhaps, even though there's
he is not rushing it.
Yeah, case considerations there. Yeah. So they give you kind of the nuts and bolts of those pieces and a little bit on the personal side. And then at some point, I think there'll probably be a transition where you're going to go ahead and quote the case. At what point? I'm assuming you haven't done that at that point yet. So maybe at that point, you've kind of covered the personal elements. You're going to be holding your hand and be taking them through this whole process. And then at some point, you're going to transition to giving them a quote. How do you typically give the quote? And then how do you roll out the payment options from there?
So the first thing I always give people a chance to just pay it, right? So the first thing I'll say is, okay, so let's talk about money. Here's the flat fee for this case is going to be whatever it's going to be. And then I say, but I will offer a payment plan if you need. Would you prefer to pay it all at once, or do you want to talk about a payment plan? If they can pay it all at once, I want them to, right? And not getting in the way of that. And then, then I just lay out the payment plan. I am making it up each time, but it's pretty consistently a quarter or 20% a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I always give them that speech about, the worst case scenario is that you're agreeing to something you really can't do. And you end up down the road not being able to pay me. I don't want to be your bill collector. I want to be your attorney. And it can, and the risk, if I end up leaving the case, you're without your money, you're without an attorney, let's make sure. And I always tell people this, I care less about the terms of the agreement. I don't need a quarter. I can come down to 20% a month, right? What I care most about is that what they're agreeing to is something they can do. It gets out of hand pretty quickly when people are agreeing to payment arrangements they simply can't do. And, I think people also just like that. I find a lot of people are just really grateful off the bat for the way I handle the payment arrangements, and being flexible. And, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, you're just really having an honest conversation, right? Creating space for them just to be honest about what they can and can't do up front, right? So that you can figure out what's the arrangement that's going to be workable for them, really actually workable, and not setting up an arrangement that's anything more than that, right? I mean, it's like we got to come up with that, and that's kind of to the degree that you can have that honesty and that just like brass tacks work, what's realistic. Let's make something that's going to be workable for you, because there's no set. I don't want to have a relationship where we're have constantly talk about money. I want to be able to represent you and handle this thing for you and have that part taken care of. So help people feel a lot more comfortable, and then you can come to terms that is going to be more realistic for them, which is probably one of the reasons why you don't have as many issues. Don't have very many issues with the collection side of things.
Yeah. I think I hope that's right. I don't seem to have a lot of issues with collecting, and I've been making the same kind of pitch about payment arrangements for quite a while. The one thing I changed when Jack told me to is he said, start by asking them what they can afford. Start with that. What can you afford as a down payment? Which is a really great idea, instead of just coming forward and saying, here's what I'm offering you, because they may be able to pay more. Or maybe there's some arrangement where they have a very small amount down, but it's a case you really want, and they've already taken out money from their 401k. It's just coming, and you can get that case knowing that the money's coming. Like you can be flexible when you do that. But it's just like, if you're making an argument in court, and you say to a jury, here's what you can expect in opening statements. You say, here's what you can expect to see. The most important thing is that they see those things, right? If you say to a client, here's what you can expect from me, here's what you're going to receive in the mail, here's what you're going to have to do. When things fit what you say they're going to, the way it's going to be, you're credible to them. And once they think you're credible, they'll pretty much just put their faith in you.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients who comes time to review the evidence, and they'll just say, I don't want to know. Just tell me what I need to do. I still make them get a little deeper than that, but people really just want to put their trust in somebody. You don't go into the doctor's office and say, "Doc, here's what I think the diagnoses are. What do you think?" You say, "Just tell me what I need to do," right? And that's what people
guide my hand, doctor. Tell me where to go.
all day, right? Yeah.
It's like, no, you handle it, please.
That's what I hope for. I don't want, listen, I don't know anything about plumbing. I had a plumber at my house the other day. I don't want him giving me options. Just come over and fix the thing, make it better for me. And that's all people want. Make it better.
That's right. Just handle it. And I'll take care of, just tell me what the scope of the deal is. What's the process? What are we going through? What do you expect of me? Like you can see the same consultation happening with the plumber, right? If they have these same elements, it's the same kind of thing. Scope of the work. What's going to be the process? What's the availability you need from me? Okay, cool. Now let's talk about the quote. And can you pay that up front, or do you want me to talk about a payment plan for you? Okay, let's talk about the payment plan. Cool. Blah blah blah. All right, we'll go ahead and get started on the work on Monday. Right? I'll make a similar conversation.
It's the same, and it's the same thing where if the plumber or the handyman says he's going to do something, and then things don't match up, it takes an extra week to get the materials or whatever. You start to go, wait. Then you start to lose trust. So you just don't make promises you can't keep, but give as much guidance as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been pretty successful with it. I think I have a pretty high rate of signing clients and a very low rate of people who are unhappy with me at the end of the case, which is kind of hard in criminal defense because we lose a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
We plead guilty in a lot of cases. Sometimes we lose at trial. Things don't always go their way, but people usually are still happy if they feel like you fought for them.
That's right. Well, and I think these are the tenets, right, of a successful consultation. Why folks hire you, taking the time with three people, you're helping them understand what's involved, you understand what's going on in the case, help them understand what they need to do, and then you're working with them on a budget that's affordable for them. 20-25% down, and then just kind of breaking things up. I think one of the things that'll be nice for you once you do have the recurring billing system in place is that you don't necessarily have to do it once a month. You can then have a system that will process it weekly or biweekly.
Right.
Which is a little bit too difficult administratively to have to do it yourself.
Right.
But when the payments are being processed, when the person gets paid, they're a little bit more likely to be successful because it's just a little, it tends to be a little easier for someone to peel off $250 out of a weekly paycheck than it is for them to save $1,000 by the end of the month. It's just kind of human nature. They got diapers, they got things that the money goes somewhere, right? It just does. Yeah. So, when you're able to structure where there's a little bit lower payments, higher frequency, you'll probably be even seeing a higher success rate than you are right now in terms of those payments.
That's a fantastic idea. I mean, I would never do a weekly payment plan now because
it's too much work.
Yeah. But that's actually a fantastic. I didn't even think of that. That's fantastic. That's great to think about. It's nice getting paid weekly, their money.
And your cash flows are way more often, right? Like I'm getting payments every week from all the clients that I'm working with rather than these big chunks at the end of the month or whatever it might be. And that's also just the way it works from a merchant processing. And, if someone's getting paid with a direct deposit, money comes in, right? The direct deposit comes out, or excuse me, the withdrawal comes out, then the bank door opens. Yeah. Right. So all these things batch and transact before any business is done that day. Right. Yep. So the money's just there if it's timed accordingly. Right. But like you said, it's really only feasible or manageable really if you have a system that's doing that automatically.
Hey, Dave, I should warn you, I've got about 5 minutes before one of my wonderful unbundled clients is coming in to meet me.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I have another call coming up here in about 10. So this is a perfect time to wrap. So, Joshua, I couldn't be more excited about your success thus far and the partnership. I really appreciate the fact that you've been offering folks an opportunity to get started without, thousands of bucks up front and working with people on a budget and talking to people like human beings and making sure that they know that you care about them and that you're there to do great work for them and do it in a way that's affordable for them. So couldn't be happier for success and for what's coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm still in just disbelief that I'm making as much as I am from Unbundled, and almost every month I'm like, is the bottom going to fall out? When are things going to change? And it's consistent. It's not like I go a month without and then a bunch come in. It's just consistent and it works. And I would scream it from a mountaintop for people to hear. It's bizarre how I don't know. There were a lot of promises or or suggestions made to me at least about how successful I would be if I did stuff the way I was told to. And it's been better than I ever would have guessed.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're certainly not going anywhere, and we're going to continue to take things to the next level. And happy to resource you on the front of hiring additional attorneys and keep building up the firm. So looking forward to those next chapters.
You offer some kind of growth support. Right?
Yeah, we have what's called a success team now. This is a recent development, but one of the challenges that a lot of our attorneys face is it's a good challenge to have, which is I'm retaining so much business. How do I keep up with the legal work? How do I get systems in place to hire great people? How do I do this a little bit more efficiently? How do I manage my team? That kind of stuff. So in order to take the next level, because, as a self-employed entrepreneur right now, you've only got the time in the day. This is the amount of cases you can handle. And so, that transition from solo practitioner to small firm, that's where we start to put on the entrepreneur hat and get the right people in place and put in systems in place to get the right people in place that helps you take the revenues to the next level. And so, that's the whole purpose of our success team is to resource you on that front and any of the attorneys we work with on building a business.
So what does that take to, maybe this isn't the time to ask, but what does it take to get involved and actually get the support like that and start being able to, Jack mentioned it, but I can't remember the details.
Yeah, just get a call on calendar. We can reach out to you and book you in to meet myself and Justin's the head of our attorney success team. Cool. So we can make that happen and start talking about what those, what's the things we need to put in place. There's probably people, hiring great people and putting in a hiring process. Cool. Interview hiring process probably be a good first step, and get you the help you need to take it to the next level.
That would be great. I'll look forward to it. I'll talk to Jack and we'll get something on the books.
All right. Well, thanks again for jumping on the show and for everybody listening. Hope you took some good notes, and if you haven't offered payment plans, you might want to now and give it a fair shake. I think we all understand that it's a bit of a faith play. Step out into the void but run the numbers. Put on your hat, put on your entrepreneur hat, run some numbers, try to be objective about it. Use an automated recurring billing payment solution if you can, like LawPay or something like that, to process those payments automatically and implement it into your consultation. And wouldn't be surprised if you're able to start to convert a lot more folks. So thanks again for being part of the show.
One last thing I would say, I don't know if anyone has questions who's considering doing Unbundled or is just considering how to grow and do some of these things that we talked about. I'm happy to take calls and to chat with anybody. I really don't mind. It's hard to change your business practices. So look me up, London Defense, the law firm, not the chess move. And feel free to reach out to me. Apparently it's a chess move. Always ruins.
You later discovered.
Yeah. Yes, I did. All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Josh. Nice to see you, man. And if everyone else watching, we'll look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. Bye for now.
For more information about how our exclusive Unbundled leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com. You can watch each new episode of the podcast on the Unbundled Attorney YouTube channel, or if you prefer to listen, you can find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. And be sure to subscribe so you get each new episode as soon as it's available. And remember to leave us your review on iTunes. We read each and every one of them and really appreciate your support of the show. Once again, thanks for listening.